Hi, folks. Welcome to another FaB GaB show. I'm Joe Mayo, and I'm here with my friend Tim Allen. Hello, Tim.
Hello, Joe. Hello, everyone.
And this is a special occasion, and we may be joined by more people. I'm not sure. If anybody wants to come up here and we can, join this conversation. This is a serious conversation, more or less. Doesn't mean we can't have fun, but yeah. All right. So now I'm saying that right now on October the 5th in the US of 2022 is the 60th anniversary of the release of the Beatles' first official single, British single, Parlophone single, Love Me Do, and it was backed with P.S. I Love You in 1962. Now, it's 9 p.m. here as I start this, which means that for the live purposes here in England, it's already October 6th, but hey, nobody's perfect. So I had been, I I had been thinking for a while that I wanted to do something. For months, I've been thinking maybe I'll do something for the anniversary. Didn't know what it was going to be. Maybe it would be just a regular video of me yapping about "Love Me Do." But I thought up to this morning, I was thinking about it. Even up to the last minute, I thought I don't know if I should do anything or not. Let me go live and do a Fab Gab, and Tim was able to make it, which is great. So all right, let's where can we begin here? And please copy, you know, welcome to comment and add your thoughts. Love Me Do. Okay, it was a song in 1958, I think, that Paul kind of wrote. John said in his Playboy interview that Paul wrote the whole thing when he was a teenager, but then later on, Paul said it was a joint effort, kind of 50-50 between John and Paul. So I don't know which way for sure, but we think of it more as a Paul effort overall. And oh, Kit O'Toole's here. Hello, Kit. Feel free to join us if you can. Uh, and the recording history of this, Tim, right? I got some notes here. I have most of it committed to memory, but
Yeah.
you know, yeah. Hey, Caitlin Larkin's here too. Caitlin says 60 years of recorded Beatles music. No better reason to celebrate. You know what I always do, Caitlin? Just to be a stickler, I always say really it's 61 years this year because I count the Beatles with Tony Sheridan, and in particular, John got to do vocals on Ain't She Sweet and Cry for a Shadow. So we have Ain't She Sweet and Cry for a Shadow, as well. All right.
Mhm.
So yeah, but this is the one. As I say, you don't really consider that the official Beatles record. When they did "Ain't She Sweet." We have another guest coming up. Hello, Paulina.
Hey everyone.
How are you? Oh, I see you
Yeah.
got the signal there. There you go. We're gonna be showing stuff. That's for
Yeah, we're
sure.
going to be showing stuff.
Is
Okay.
that the original or is it the later reissue?
This is the 50th anniversary that came out, and
Yeah.
this is the correct version, the
Yeah.
not the one that they got mixed up.
Yeah.
You're freezing up a little bit here, but even though your image is kind of like sketchy, we can hear you. All right. So, yeah, I don't have that. I don't have the original or the other one. But I know they had the incorrect version in the sense that they put the Andy White version, which we'll get into, the Andy White version
Yeah.
with him on drums originally instead of the Ringo Starr version, and they uh, corrected it later on.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit uh, about, well, the recording history of this thing. Now, the Beatles, right? They still had Pete Best originally when they first went down to record this with George Martin on June 6th of 1962, and Pete Best played on a version of it, which appears on the anthology one. It can be heard, and I don't want to say anything too bad about Pete because I just met him, happily this weekend at a show. But his version is not good. The drumming on that version is not very good. It's all over the place. What do you think? Anybody? Have you heard it?
Yeah.
um,
He,
no, you go.
Uh, he's doing like three different things. He's drumming.
Yeah.
He didn't just drum. He started out okay, and then he started doing the shuffle thing, and then he changed again. It's like he's probably just really nervous. I don't think he was actually that
Mm.
bad of a drummer.
Yeah, because I always wonder if they had
You
said,
know?
Pete, we do this instead. Could he do it?
Yeah,
What they wanted. I mean, I still think Ringo was a better drummer. I happen to
yeah.
like Pete's drumming on some songs. For me,
Uh-huh.
most notably, "Cry for a Shadow." I like the drums on that. I think it
I
was
did,
him,
I
not
did love
Bernard
his,
Purdy.
I did love his drumming on the EMI audition of Besame Mucho. I felt like that was a way better version than what we got on Decca. Um,
Hmm.
but
That's yeah, it's not bad. Bad drum. He plays drums on that too, right? That was also June
yeah.
6th, right?
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Oh, we got Stephen Schnee here, by the way. Hello, Stephen. Thanks
Hey,
for
Steven.
popping up.
Hello. I thought this is a great opportunity to talk about the Beatles since I don't talk about the Beatles on my channel because nobody can surpass Matthew Street and Joe Mayo as the ultimate Beatle channels,
Oh,
or maybe Joe Mayo
well,
and Matthew Street.
thank you very much. So you have stuff about the Love Me Do you?
Oh, I
What's
mean,
the
I'm.
topic
Oh
today?
no. I know this is a topic. No, it's the the whole thing about. Well, you guys continue, and I'll add once we talk more about the technical stuff.
All right. Let's get. We were talking about Pete Best and
Yeah.
kind of his version, kind of like taking the Beatles all over the place, different tempos and very awkward kind of arrangement. And well, I think there is when George Martin said, "Look, I have a problem with the drummer here." He said, "You can do whatever you want with him live on stage, but we'll get somebody else on the tracks." He's not gonna. He once said he's not gonna make my life any easier. He thought in making hit records. So supposedly the Beatles were already thinking of dumping Pete anyway. I always found it interesting, and I did a video on it a long time ago, that if everything had gone smoothly, they would have kept Pete. If they had gotten everything and they kept making records. So it's just like, okay, you don't like the drummer?
Yeah.
No problem. We're thinking the same thing. So Pete was dismissed, and then in August of '62, Ringo came in, right? And they went back in the studio again, this time on September the 4th, or as they tend to say in England, 4 September. They always do
Yeah.
4th of September. And Ringo was there, but George Martin kind of wanted them to do the song "How Do You Do It" by Mitch Murray, and
I love their
I don't
version.
know.
I do.
I
It's
like
silly,
their
but I
version
love
of
it.
it.
Yeah.
I like their version of it. And who had a hit with it? Jerry and the Pacemakers, was it?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yes.
Well,
Yeah.
Yeah, but
they
Jerry
yeah
and the Pacemakers,
they
they
ultimately
left
did it,
out that
right?
ooh la la. I think that the Beatles added that ooh la la part in there because they didn't like it. So they were trying to make it purposely a little
Yeah,
cheesy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
which always one thing I could never understand is they always said, "Well, we want to do our own music. We didn't like,
Mhm.
how do you do it?" It was whatever
Mhm.
they thought. I don't know, silly or twee or whatever. What?
Yeah.
I love "Love Me Do," guys, but what do you think "Love Me Do" is? I mean, is it? You think "Love Me Do" is
Yeah.
that much sophisticated? To me, if anything, "How Do You
Yeah.
Do It" is a superior song to "Love Me
Well,
Do."
I read just today,
I think so too.
coincidentally, how why it didn't come out at all, and it's not exactly as the way I've always thought. Okay, George Martin wanted it as the A side. They absolutely said no. So then he was like, okay, we'll put it on the B side. And they didn't really have any huge objections to that. But George Martin had gotten the song from Mitch Murray himself. And he went to Mitch Murray and said, we're going to put it on the B side. And Mitch Murray said, no way, that's a hit record. That is not going on the B side of any record. That's an A side, that's a hit. So he nixed the B side. And that's why it never got released.
Yeah, and I think it's a perfect. Even though they supposedly had disdain for the song, the Beatles did, and they supposedly played poorly or whatever, or sang poorly. I thought it was a decent job when I finally got to hear it years later. And then um, I've always thought, the B side, "P.S. I Love You." This is just a matter of opinion. I always thought that maybe "P.S. I Love You" was a better song. A lot of people
Oh yeah,
don't care for that song. What do you think? You agree, Stephen?
I
Yeah.
totally agree. Totally.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with "Love Me Do," but "P.S. I Love You," I think, in my opinion, seemed a more logical chart hit.
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, it turned out that "Love Me Do" did get to its number 17 on the charts in England, but some people suspect that Brian Epstein bought up copies of it. I don't know how true that is. I've heard it speculated, and I've heard some people say no, it's a fact. So I don't know what's what with that. But with "P.S. I Love You" in 1934. There was already a song with that title, which
Oh,
I read was supposedly one of the reasons why they decided not to put it
Hmm.
as an A side. We have another guest, and it's Kid O'Toole. Hello, Kid.
Hello, hello,
Kit.
everybody.
Good to see
Good
you.
evening. Good to see you all.
Well, I don't know how much you've heard or if we've heard us chattering so far for the first 12 minutes or so, but what's your feelings on "Love Me Do"? I mean, or as a song versus "P.S. I Love You."
Oh, I much prefer P.S. I Love You. I mean, I just think, I mean, Love Me Do, of course, we all have to love it. I mean, it's the first, it's the first hit. But in terms of an actual, in terms of catchiness, in terms of, in a way, sophistication, I would say "P.S. I Love You" is my preference because I mean, "Love Me Do" has always been a little repetitive for me.
Yeah.
But I do. I mean, the harmonicas. I do like that. I mean,
hmm
the
Yeah.
harmonica part. I do enjoy that. But other than that, no, I'm not going to sing "P.S. I Love You." I want people
I
to
don't think so.
stay on this stream. See, but
I, I think that you mentioned that with the harmonica. I love the harmonica. I've always liked the harmonica, and John played the harmonica. But also he often he called it the mouth organ,
Hmm.
and he got it from a Bruce Chanel hit, right? "Hey
hey,
Baby"
baby.
is really
hmm
what he was trying to go for, I think, with that
Hmm.
a lot. And of course, the idea I think was Paul always tells a story, right? And now in concert, especially, he tells a story, right? That
Love me wah.
yeah. So who was
Yeah.
going to sing? John. Paul was very nervous. John was going to sing it, but he couldn't like sing it because when it goes to the part where you guys play the harmonica, who's going to sing. So Paul had to sing the song, and he says he can still hear to this day the nerves on his voice singing "Love Me Do,"
Mhm.
which I
Yeah.
think is it's a fun story that he tells in concert now. So I'm keeping my eye on the comments, folks. I'm sorry, I can't get to everybody, but I'll
Mhm.
try to see what I can if anybody has opinions or
I think Paul's
thoughts.
nervousness is much more apparent on the Ringo version than on the Alan White version recorded a week
Yeah.
later. Um,
Yeah, yeah,
he
interesting.
had less nerves by then.
Well, that's what we should. Yeah, that's good. Bringing us back to Ringo. We had been talking about September 4th, and Ringo came in. George Martin
Yeah.
always told the story that, well, I didn't know who Ringo was. He came in. I don't even know who you are. I already have a session drummer. That's why I didn't use him, kind of politely. But supposedly history shows that
Yeah.
Ringo did do a version,
That,
and George Martin wasn't
yeah.
crazy about his either.
Because it was a week later. Ringo recorded the first one on September 4th, and then like
Right.
September 11th or whenever it was, they had another session. They re-recorded it this time with Alan White on
Andy
drums.
White.
That's
Yeah.
also when they recorded the version of "P.S. I Love You" that they used. So Ringo's not on
Mhm.
either of them.
Yeah,
hmm
Ringo's not on "P.S. I Love You." He plays maracas.
No.
But he
Yes.
says Ringo said something in an interview that when I guess he's talking about the first time, September 4th, he had maracas in one hand and tambourine or something. He thinks because of that, George Martin got thrown and didn't like Ringo's drumming or technique or something. So Andy White was in for September 11th, which was the second time. At least as you said,
Mm.
Tim, a week later, and
Yeah.
they had Andy White ready to go. And I much prefer Andy White's version. I got to tell you, the drumming on that's the one most of us all know well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The one they play the
Yeah.
most.
Yeah.
As much as I love Ringo, and what I like, and I always talk about it. I'll say it again when they do the harmonica and it comes back after the solo break. There's a crash of the cymbals that. I
Yeah.
like that much better than Ringo just going doom, whatever
Yeah.
that is in the
Yeah.
in the mono version. And one of the mono versions, Ringo version, mono stereo. The Ringo first, the version what he did on whichever day it was. The I think the tapes are lost or wiped or something. I remember hearing that to the point where when they put it out in the United States for the first time on the Beatles Rarities album in 1980, they had to use a single
Yeah.
for it.
Wow. That I
And
didn't know.
that's
Yeah.
weird because it's like it seems that both master tapes of both versions are gone. There's no master tapes of either the 11th session or the fourth session. So it's like
Oh wow.
that's sort of weird that both of them are gone
It is weird
mysteriously.
because they've got how do you do it?
Yeah, I bet you Ringo stole the tapes. Ringo has them at home.
But I think with from I heard about how do you do it is that they probably took that off of an acetate as well, probably not off of a master tape.
Well,
I
I don't
could
know
be wrong
because
about that.
a mono and a stereo version of How Do You Do It exists. So I think the tapes must exist because it's been bootlegged on stereo and it sounds very
Mhm.
well. So
Mhm.
uh, I think the tapes got to exist for that.
Yeah, the
I don't know.
Rarities version was taken from a record. I remember that, but it's still
Yeah.
great to have
Mhm.
Ringo's version.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and of course, in 1962 on October 5, when the single was released in England, it was the Ringo version that was released. Yes,
Mhm.
with the red label.
Yep.
Yes.
And I remember Ringo often says, it was so exciting just to have it on the radio, to have a bit of plastic out, you know, and how what a thrill it is. You can't imagine, he says, what a thrill that is the first time. Yeah, I could imagine it, Ringo, but that's all I'm going to do is imagine, I guess, because
Yeah.
I'm never going to cut cut a hit record. But yeah, and then interestingly, later on when the LP came out, they did the Please Please Me LP. The version that was released on the LP, as we know, was the Andy White, more common version.
Right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's the one that most people hear regularly. And that was also on the Beatles Hits EP, the Andy White version. You know,
It was pretty much everywhere after like 64. It became the version on all of the 45s released everywhere.
yeah, and there was one, I
And
think,
albums and hits and
yeah, it was on everything Andy White, as you say, yes, Andy White. But I know there's a Canadian single. I have a Canadian single that has Ringo's version on it,
Oh
yeah.
wow.
which is interesting. Uh,
Is that original
so yeah,
pressing or is that a reissue? The Canadian single that you're
I
talking about.
think it's an
It's
original pressing.
a
Mhm.
first pressing done by Capitol.
Yeah, it's
Wow.
on the swirl. It's on the orange and yellow
Mhm.
Yeah.
swirl.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Right.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, but
Thank you,
you don't
Paulina.
find that record on the Swirl because it never came out until like the 80s on the Capitol Swirl label in America.
Mm.
Yeah, thanks
Okay.
for bringing up Woody B. The Past Masters. It was a big treat when Past Masters came out on CD
Yeah.
in 1988. It was the Ringo version, the original single version
Yep.
of it. So let's see. I think I covered all the things I wanted to talk about. But this, oh,
Right.
there it
Yep.
is.
There it is. The
Let me blow that
swirl.
up. I'm going to blow that up. I always do that for
Yep.
shows like this. Yeah, that's what I have. Yeah,
Mhm.
if it's
Yep.
the
Amazing.
original. Oh, and P.S. I love you on the other side. Yeah. So we have before we continue, we have some things to show. I know if Tim does, and I do. Tim,
Right.
start us off. What do you have? Love me do
Show and
wise to
tell.
share.
Okay. Well, really quick, because Pauline already showed it, but it's in my pile. I have the reissue of that. This is the correct version as well. But that's what it looked like when it came out
Yeah, the original look
in the UK. And I have an original Tally on the
on the
black label.
black label. Yeah.
Wow.
Nice.
And then in about 82 for the 20th anniversary, Capitol reissued this. And this was
Yeah.
the first time in America that it was on the swirl label.
Mhm.
I think there were reissues in the 70s, but they were never on the Capitol swirl. And then I have the picture disc.
Sure.
Very
Very
nice.
nice.
And I have probably an early 90s reissue when they were doing all those jukebox
Is that
singles.
on a colored? Oh, no, it's on a colored
No,
wax. A
this
lot
is
of
just
those.
black, but I think it's the same period. I think this
Yeah.
is when they were doing this one just happens to be black. And that's it. I have the 12-inch, but
Yeah,
get
we
to that.
didn't want to cross over in the things we're
Yeah.
showing. So, so yeah. Okay,
Oh.
there's Paulina with another one there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
this
just
is this is the Parlophone 1982 version that also
yeah,
came with the same kind of cover as the
Yeah.
Capitol. But this time it's on the Parlophone label right there. And this has the Andy White version on it.
oh
And
yeah.
they
Yeah,
came in this box right here, the singles collection.
we should talk about that a little bit eventually. But go ahead,
Mhm.
Joe, please.
Yep.
Okay. I have a couple of things to show Love Me Do related. I guess first, I'll start with this, and I don't know the year on this. Is this
That's
82? This is
that's
the
82
12.
too, I believe.
Yeah, the 12-inch version.
Mhm.
Love Me Do.
Yeah.
And it's cool to have it on a 12-inch with the red Parlophone label. This one has Love Me Do and P.S. I Love You. I presume this is the Andy White on that side because this side has a mono Love Me Do. It says original single version. So you got the Ringo version on one side and you got Andy White doing the version on the other side. All right. Well, I forgot another one. I have one more item. It's better if it's blown up, I guess. And then, of course, in the States, I always this might be my favorite picture sleeve in the States, or one of them. Love Me
Nice.
Doing P.S. I Love You. And my Tolly label here is the yellow one, which is usually the more common one, I think. And I don't know, I just remember when I was a boy, I had these, my mother had these two cousins. I always talk about Carol and Marie, who got me into the Beatles too, and they went to Shea Stadium, and they saw the Beatles at Shea, and I went to their house and played with their records, and I just remember she had this photograph cut out of the single sleeve and pasted on the wall with others. So I remember that, and I thought, now I think, oh my god, you cut the sleeve, you know. But back then, they weren't thinking about stuff like that, I suppose. Really. So, yeah, okay. Looking for the people's comments.
I just wanted to jump in, and when you said early exposure to the Beatles, that just reminded me that another kind of love me do tidbit here. I remember, probably, well, yeah, it was probably to promote the 20 greatest hits album
Right,
that they had that the video for Love Me Do. And I remember seeing that over and over and over again when I was a kid. There was a local, is Chicago, for some reason we didn't get cable for a while, so there was a local kind of knockoff MTV kind of show, and they used to play the Love Me Do kind of promotional film quite a bit. And then at the very end of it, I mean, it was just them lip syncing, from 62 in the collarless suits and everything. And then at the very end, you saw just kind of quick zoom in of the cover of the 20 Greatest Hits album. So that may have been my first exposure to that song. I mean, I was
Oh,
just a
really?
kid, yeah, and and we've all seen that footage probably 1,000 times now, but yeah, that must have been to promote the album, which was my first Beatles album I ever heard too.
Ah, interesting tidbit there.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, this is Ringo got them mixed up on Anthology. He said he played on the album. Yeah, right. He made a mistake. And
Yeah.
that's why the Beatles are not always the best judge of their history. Don't
No.
always go
Well,
everything what the
I got
Beatles
what
say.
he said when he said that. I think he meant to say like, well, like Andy played on the single, but then Ringo played on the entire album. I think that was what he's
Oh,
probably
that's what
meant
he.
to say. Yeah.
Oh.
Oh, okay.
So it wasn't
Oh.
like
Okay.
it was
Well,
like Andy just had like his little spotlight on the single, which I think around that
Andy,
time he probably switched versions of the single.
yeah,
Um,
Andy didn't play on the single. Well, the UK
well,
single. That's where it gets weird and it gets confusing
Yes.
yeah,
because most of the singles that you'll find is actually Andy's version. I mean, the original UK was Ringo, the original Canadian was Ringo, original US on Tolly is the Andy White version.
Right.
And
yeah.
most of the Capitol reissues, like this is the Andy White version. You know, the picture disc is the Andy White version. Most of the singles you'll find are actually the Andy White version.
Yes, Bingo. I have not played it recently. I was almost going to play it before the show just to make sure that it wasn't the Andy White version on the 12-inch, but then it had two versions. It has, two Love Me Do. So I
Yeah,
figured, oh, they must have got one of them right. So I didn't bother checking it, you know. So
Well, I do remember watching someone did a video. This is like before the whole copyright thing on YouTube was happening when people were doing vinyl spins on videos, and someone did do a thing on that 12-inch single, and I was like, this sounds amazing, which is why I still need to find that 12-inch because it sounded great on how it was pressed. Then again, anything and done by Parlophone is pressed great.
yeah, that's a good thing. If they would have wound up on Decca, I don't think the quality would have been as good.
Yeah.
I
No.
always thought that to myself.
That's a safe bet.
So
yeah.
while I'm looking around for comments, and if anybody has anything else they can think of regarding Love Me Do, please do, because I think we covered everything. I don't expect this to be a very long show. I just thought we'd pay homage to the day.
Well, my
Uh,
Well,
thoughts on the single were I'm sorry.
oh no, go ahead. Go ahead, Paul.
My thoughts on
uh,
a single were always like, let me do showcase what John could do on what he called the mouth organ, which is the harmonica. Whereas PS I Love You really show like how great writers they are. It's like look at that first verse. Treasure these few words till we're together, keep all my love forever. PS I Love You was like, wow, that's some very sophisticated writing right there.
yeah, I love
Um,
it. Hmm. Yeah.
um,
And I always
and
say, I'm sorry, go ahead. This is what happens when you have multiple people. Go ahead.
but that sounds great. But I will. Well, I'm not going to mention it because I know everybody hates the PS Let Me Do.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. P.S. And that's forget.
Oh, you stepped in it, Paulina.
And don't, P.S. Love Me Do is one of the worst things. I got to remember that when people ask me, "What do you think is Paul's worst song?" That's
Yeah.
got to be one of them. And Ringo did a version of Love Me Do. I think it was on Vertical Man. Was it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, you
Yes.
know, uh, 1998. But with P.S. I Love You, I always like to mention. I like the bit in the middle when they say, "As I write this letter," and you hear, I guess John going, "Oh, I don't want to sing it." And then Paul says, I want you to. And they all have a little bit in there. And then somebody goes, yeah. And I never really, also fairly recently, you know, somebody told me that's George. Whether it is, I could hear that. That's like George. Do you want to know a secret type voice? Go and saying the yeah. Maybe each one of them had a little bit in there. So I
Yeah.
Mhm.
love that.
Yeah.
If that's the case, that was a great little. We all going to sing a little bit in the middle uh, contribution.
Yeah.
So I kind of
Interesting.
like that.
Do you guys know the George story about Love Me Do? That it came out as a record, and it was going to get played. They were told it was going to get played on like Radio One or one of the radio stations. And so he sat in his living room with his parents for hours listening to the radio, and it didn't come on. And finally, his father, who was driving a bus, was like, "I got to go to bed," and went to bed. And his mother went to bed. And at like 3 o'clock in the morning, it comes on, and George runs into the room and wakes him up. His dad's
Yeah.
got to be up in like 2 hours, and like, we're on the radio, we're on the radio. And his mother was all excited, and his father was like, I needed sleep.
I like how one thing reminds me of other things. Like I remember somewhere John's Aunt Mimi saying she didn't think much of the song when she heard it.
That sounds like her.
I can't
Yeah.
remember,
Yeah.
when like that. It wasn't much, but it's really, I mean, we love it, but it's not very sophisticated. But hey, for their first try,
And
it's
that's what
nice.
I was that's what I was going to say, that in a way it did what it was supposed to do, right? I mean, it introduced them. It did have, I mean, the it sticks in your head. I mean, I mean, it is something to sing, you can sing along to it. I mean, it's got that clappable kind of beat. It does what they wanted it to do, which is to get people's attention. As we've talked about the harmonica or mouth organ, I mean, it does cut through. And and maybe, as you're saying, Paulina, maybe "P.S. I Love You" would have been too sophisticated right off the bat. Maybe that they were afraid that maybe that would have been too much for listeners right away. This way the kids could like it. And so I think, in a way, maybe it doesn't stand the test of time as much as some of their other songs do, but it accomplished what it was supposed to do, which was introducing them, and it got to number 17. Cracked the top 20 for their first song. Not bad.
Well, I think that was like a nice, probably a strategy that probably George Martin did. Whereas "Let Me Do" will be for the kids, whereas "P.S. I Love You" will be for the adults. So therefore, there's something there for both, generations. So that was a great thing that they did.
That's a good point. Yeah, because kind of like they did on Ed Sullivan when they were singing, "I Want to Hold Your Hand" and all, and then of course they do. Oh my God, I'm blanking on the song from.
So There Was You.
So There Was You. Thank you. Like that, to say, hey parents, see, we're harmless.
Yeah. Meanwhile, the Rolling Stones, the parents would never say, "Oh, they're all right." The Rolling Stones. No. But George Martin said he knew "Love Me Do" was not the big hit, and that would be later on. He was sure "Please Please Me" was going to be a hit once they sped it up, because they did a slow Roy Orbison-y kind of version of "Please Please Me," and it was slow and. He said, "Speed it up, boys." "Love Me Do." I like the interviews with George Martin where he always says, "Love Me Do" is the best song I could find from them. At the time, that's about the best thing. They had. So, we talked a little about this early on. It's a rough version. I don't like. I don't care for Pete Best drumming on that version. I don't. The Anthology 1 version you can hear. I like some of the things Pete did here and there. I mentioned "Cry for a Shadow" earlier, but I wonder again if they had told him how to play it, this is how he wanted on all the songs. Could he have done it? I don't know.
Well, that takes me back to, like, I've always mentioned it, that I met Pete Best back in 2002, and I did tell him that, hey, I do love your drumming on a lot of those Decca stuff, which is true, because I did love how he played on Like Dreamers Do and "Love It a Love." Just hearing the way that he played the drums on that were really nice. And you probably thought that I was bullshitting him, but which he made me feel like crap, being a naive 19-year-old. But it was true. It's like, he knew how to hold his own as a drummer. So I think it would have been a thing that if he would have workshopped it a little bit more, then maybe But
Maybe we did a Fab Gab show not too long ago on the Decca auditions, and we
Yeah.
talked about all the songs
Yeah.
and tried rating them, ranking them. And I remember I was surprised in revisiting them that I did like some of the drumming on some of them. Some of them I did not like, and I thought he didn't know, he was all over the place. He lost the, I can't think what the term is. When you lost the something or other, I forget what it is.
Mhm.
The
you can't keep the
whatever.
offbeat, basically.
Time.
That's what it
The
is.
tempo,
And
yeah.
but some of them, and those might have been the ones I'm thinking now. Yeah, I like Dreamers Do, and
Mhm.
some a couple other ones. I thought, yeah, no, I actually liked the busyness of it or whatever he was trying to do with the drum roll of it.
Yeah.
You know.
That was a fun show.
Mm.
That
Yeah,
was great.
yeah.
Yeah,
And
it
by the way,
was.
this is a good time to plug. There's going to be another Fab Gab show this coming Sunday, October the 9th. Does anybody recognize that? October
I have
9th.
no
What does that
idea
sound like?
why you would have
You
one
know,
on.
a
I
lot
don't
of
know what you're talking
No
about.
yeah, I think
idea.
yeah. So for John's what would have been John's 82nd birthday, we're just going to do John discussion with some people, and so be here for that. Okay, that's should be about I'm saying a roughly 3 p.m. Eastern time, 3 o'clock. But I just found out that there's somewhere I got to be earlier, and it might be a little tough to make it back by 3. But we'll try that. And here we go. Anthony's here, my friend Anthony, aka B Monster. He thinks Three Cool Cats is the good song they did with Beat Fest. I
Mhm.
think you like that one, kid. I'm seeing. I
Yeah,
forget that's
that's
one
one
of
of
the
my
ones.
favorites, actually. Yeah, I love
Yeah,
Yeah.
Three Cool Cats. Yeah,
yeah.
that
I
was one of
liked
my favorites from that session.
definitely like that one. That's a lot of
Mhm.
fun.
Yep.
A little tongue in cheek
Yeah.
too.
A
Oh, it's
great
fun.
George vocal too.
Yes. I've often said, I know we're not going to make this into the, the Deco
Yeah.
audition discussion part 2, but I thought, yeah, George was like the hero of the Deco auditions, I think.
Yeah, he was the one that I thought brought his best game there the
He
Mhm.
most
did. Yep.
out of all of them, which is
Yep.
interesting.
Yeah, really.
So, all right, well, I think I'm going to say okay for now, unless any more things pop up here. I just wanted to do a little something. I was going to do a video, but this is better than a video, just me talking for 10 minutes or 15 minutes. So, thank you everybody for being here. Now, Paulina, you have a channel, correct?
Mhm.
And I forget is Pauline what the exact title is?
It's Paulina, the Angel of Music. I did
Of
do a
music.
video earlier today on Let Me Do, so it's there. And I'm gonna be doing some more Beatle videos later on, so stay tuned.
And the way I think is this is one of my faults. I'm over here getting ready to do mine and I'm putting up like on StreamYard. Okay, you notice, and as I'm doing it, yours pops up. And I'm thinking, oh, she's gonna think I stole her idea. That's how I think. I'm like, I didn't steal your idea. So then we have Tim Allen, Snap Crackle Pop, Podomatic.com. And I'm not going to say that show unless you tell me again. Tell me
The
that
Snap
show again.
Crackle and Pop Vinyl Hour.
The Vinyl Hour. That's the part I got to
Yeah,
remember.
yeah.
And
There's
Kit
over
02.
200
Whoop,
episodes at
two. You
Wow.
is
snapcracklepop.vinyl.com
that
right now. Well,
over
I've done
200?
almost 400, but there's
Oh,
200 of them that are still up at the
200
moment.
are up. 200 are up. Okay, Kiddo 2,
Nice.
of course. She's got her books, so gotta have them here. I'm trying to remember the title of them. Michael Jackson, FAQ. All you, what's left to know about that, right? The king of
Yep.
pop.
You got
Then
it.
we have fandom in the Beatles, but she has another one, and also songs we were singing, guided tours through the Beatles' lesser-known tracks, and of course, Kid is also one of my colleagues on our Talk More Talk show on YouTube. Please subscribe to Talk More Talk. We just had our 100th show, and we had a lot of fun where we played Rack Our Brains. We
Yep.
let people come up here with us and try to ask us questions, not trivia questions, but opinion questions. And boy, some of them were tough.
Yeah, damn, they made us work.
Oh, hello and good night. Sorry you got here late. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
Rob.
Oh
Sorry about that,
no.
Robert S. There, Robscure Music. Subscribe to Robscure Music one more time. Put that up there. If you like stuff that's not just Beatles and the same old, he tries talking about some other stuff. All right, which is doesn't usually get enough notice. So thank you all for being here. We'll see you soon on FaB, which should be. Oh, there it is. P.S. Let's go out with it. Let's sing a little P.S. Love we do.
Oh
How does it?
yeah.
I only know the beginning. As
As
I
I
write
write this
this
letter,
letter.
send my love to you. P.S. I love you. I love it.
Okay.
It's catchy.
Leave on a fun note. Okay,
Yeah.
everybody. So long.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.